you know, how there would be no CMAW if there was no Len Embree. So it's my pleasure to introduce a real hero, Brother Len Embree.
Sisters, brothers, comrades. I used to like to introduce myself that way when there was lots of right-wingers hanging around the Carpenters Union, and they'd freak out and figure they were going to get contaminated or something. I could return all the compliments I got from Jan back to him and to the leadership of CMAW. Paul's not here today. They've done a tremendous job facing a lot of odds. And I thank Kelly for inviting me. I remember him now from Cranbrook and a couple of other places. And some of you people, I got some, I guess I can't say the F word. Yeah, I got some fucking allergy. And so my hearing is bad. So if I insulted anybody yesterday at supper or do today, it's because I can't hear very good. So another warning, I had a reputation for not being too long-winded. Believe it or not, if any of you are suffering today from last night. But I had quite the reputation and still do for being very opinionated. And I don't apologize for that at all. I don't apologize for that. Pretty emotional for me today. I'm quite flattered. I've got lots of ego, but I don't think I've got out there feeding it too much, but I was quite flattered. Not very many bloody working class activists would get the opportunity that I get today to talk to the leadership of the two organizations that had probably the most influence on me in my life. You know, I mean, my family were all coal miners out of Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. And I was born in Drumheller. My grandpa went underground at 12, and my dad went underground at 14. And they moved to Nakusp. My grandpa was there, retired, moved to Nakusp, so my brother and I would end up in the mines. So I'm forever grateful to my parents, who are both gone. But I was raised, told a number of times by all my family, and especially the male members, what a privilege it was to be born into the working class. I'll be okay. You don't hear that much anymore. We're all trying to run so fast and trying to accommodate, and you know, you look south of the border and you look at Europe and you look at the immigrants, and it's pretty hard to keep your head up and do what you people all do. And I have the utmost respect for you all of you. Differences, serious differences with the odd one, but I have a lot of respect for you all. It's not an easy job that you're doing, but it's really a necessary one. Funny story, I gotta interject. Kelly said I could do this. So, that bloody pulp mill, I went there 1965, I think. And it wasn't long before there was a bit of a work stoppage or something. And I was really fortunate. There was lots of old timers there. Old timers to me, they were younger than me now, you know, they were probably in their 30s and 40s, and lots of lefties, and a really shitty company, Celanese in America. From what I understand, and I've lived in the community all my life, not much different from Mercer in some respect. So they're all kind of into that. Anyways, one thing led to another, and I was up for a little battle or whatever, and so I got elected financial secretary. And about 2 months later, we had a wobble, and we had no pension out there, none of that kind of good stuff, but really strong members. Well, the odd suckle, but I mean, you all, you know, you learn to deal with it. So I'm financial secretary, and I'm always blabbing on about the dignity of workers and all that old left-wing stuff that Groucho influenced me with, or Carl, or whoever it was, Mark. And I learned that because I was working out there on graveyard. We used to work 7 and 1, 7 and 2, 7 and 4. And you couldn't read anything but pulp magazines. So what I would do, I would go see Audrey, the old bag there that was the mayor, right, Matilda Hunt. And she was the librarian, and I would say, what can you get me about Karl Marx, and what can you get me about Lenin, and what can you get me about Gramsci? And so I had the luxury of having the employer teach me my political history. And it rang true for me. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. But it rang true for me. So what happened one day is this young guy comes walking around with a clipboard, and he was meeting people and taking notes. And the company had once again made a new start. They were going to get along with the workers, and they had a company magazine, and they wanted our pictures in there and all the rest of it. So he come to see me. So I'm up in the bleach plant, so I take him around down the machine room and stuff there. So I said, we got talking about disrespect of workers and how they don't take advantage of all the talent that was out there then and is out there now, and it is on every bloody crew, every construction crew. So we had a guy, Rick Fillmore. He still goes out there at the odd time, works for the defoamer company. Yeah. Maybe you know.
Well, I know Rick.
Wicked sense of humor. So we had a foreman, tour foreman, Jack. What the hell was Jack? Dixon. Dumb as a board. He's telling us all, we're on the afternoon shift, everybody's bored, and he's giving us this bullshit about how he come back from Spokane, and Jesus, you guys wouldn't believe it, I was just outside the North Port, and this bloody rabbit, he must have been that goddamn tall, he jumped out in front of me, and and he's carrying on, and he was that kind of a guy. So he left, so Fillmore says, I'm going down the machine room for a minute to get some wrapper. I said, okay, so he come back with the wrapper, and he spent most of that shift making up this huge rabbit. A sheet of pulp, big tail on it. It's called Jack. And we took it up and hung it up off the crane in the bleach plant. So it hung there for weeks. Nobody said a word, and we all fucking laughed. And even Dixon, he kind of ignored it or tried to. So I'm telling this young guy, this reporter for the company, and the talent we got. Look at their artistic talent. Look at the Rob. Look at Jack up there. The bloody company. Most of the tour foremen have never even saw it. Once they saw it, they were some pissed off. So we got ordered to go up there and take that down. We fucking refused. No, it's unsafe. So there was a standoff for 3 days. We wouldn't go. That's how strong the guys were. No, we wouldn't go. They finally got some suckhole, moved him up from bleach plant operator to pulping group leader, Huey Wilson, I still remember. And we got to protect those people too, but I still empathize about him because he was running scared all the time. So poor Huey, he's up there with the high pressure hose because he can't reach it. Damn near killed himself, if you can imagine. So that's a little bit of the background. It wasn't founded for dollars and cents per hour. It wasn't. It was founded so that working people could go to work with a degree of dignity. And I still believe that really strongly today. If you can imagine, 50 bloody years later, and it's still as strong in me as it was then. So that's the tutoring that I had. I mean, the other funny stories, we had lots of fun too. We had lots of fun. We had a big, tall streak of nothing there. Kerr Genestat was a tour foreman. Norwegian guy, good enough guy. Norwegian book of humor, 1 page, blank. And he had a bad back, the poor bugger, We used to, so in the digesters, there used to be the staff, like the foreman's office. You couldn't go in there. We all did on the graveyard. We had keys to the office and every other goddamn thing. So we did all that. I know you guys wouldn't, you men wouldn't do that anymore, of course. Anyways, he had a bad back, and I was digester scissors. I'm going out to get K sample or K number sample. and I hear this, ooh, oh shit, I've been smoking too much weed. Ooh. I go give myself and I come in and it was coming from the can, and there was a vent in the bottom of the can. So I go over and I look in there, and there's Jen Stat, he's about 6'6", and a bad, and he's piled up on the floor, fell getting off the can. We helped him out after about an hour. So lots of trials and tribulations. And Fillmore, another story about Fillmore. We were in bargaining. Gordy Fontaine, is there anybody here from Skookumchuck? Hey, brother, Gordy used to be a president over there years ago. And he and I were around the same age, and we were pretty tight. And we were in bargaining, and Angus was saying, mellow, or whatever you said in those days. And I'm sitting there, and, you know, we're trying to bargain an agreement, and it's tough bloody times. And I hear these assholes in the next room, Landscale, the Pulp Bureau, and all them. I don't know if those clowns are still around. And they're laughing and having a really good time. And I'm pissed. I said to Gordy, fuck this, let's go shut the mills down. Gordy said, I'm with you. So I got up, and they come out, oh, what's that? Where are you going? Yeah, IR guy said, I said, we're going home to shut your mill down. I phoned Rick Fillmore, he was the digester operator. I phoned him from Vancouver, from the Ritz Hotel. Said, shut her down. And Rick did. Never mind what the tour foreman said, nothing, we shut her down. We were only down for 3 months. Something like that, 3 or 4 months. So, but it was a great training ground, and it allowed me to really earn some self-respect, I think, you know, and I think that's what all you are involved in trying to do that. But anyways, come 1972, I got involved with the NDP, and I still support them, but I have to agree with Joe Stalin, and I don't agree with Joe Stalin very much, but social democracy can oftentimes be the enemy of the working class. But they first time I went pork chopping. First time I went on the payroll. That's what we used to call the international guy. And Dave Barrett won, and it was pretty exciting. And I had a drinking problem, and it was getting really good because a guy my size, and I did a lot of boxing when I was a kid, teenager and stuff, so I figured I was kind of pretty tough, and I was starting to lose them all. I remember Rudy Martini rescued me one afternoon shift out of the High Arrow. Had to go in, cleaning up. 2 was meeting my partner, who was quite a bit younger than me, but we've been together 33 years. And there was some said it ain't gonna last, including her sister. But her sister's split and been on her own for a long time. And going south to Nicaragua. So anyway, came back, worked for the school board, led a bit of a wobble there because they were treating construction carpenters. We built a school bus garage down there. And they paid us more than they paid the school board, the 2 regular carpenters, Alfie Ambersoni and George Wilcoff. Alfie taught me a lot. Yeah, taught me a lot. Old Italian guy, never got his ticket because they didn't have help with the TQ at the time. He used to say, I tell it for you like I tell it away. Shut up or your mouth. Something else. And every day you got to clean your tools. Anyway, I got annoyed about this, treating these guys unfairly. And that always triggered something with me, and still does. So led a bit of a wobble, walked over to the school board office there. John Dasher was the secretary treasurer, and he was a kind of a anal kind of a guy, smoked a pipe. So tell him this is bullshit, carrying on. He was so pissed off he bit the stem of his pipe right in half. So I knew we had him. So they straightened us all out, but for that little episode I got to put on with the regular carpenters, which was great because that's where I learned most of my trade. And I'm still not that good at it. But enough to get by on construction, but never took much finishing. So, needless to say, then they laid us off after the bus garage was done, and you all know how this goes, women and men, so you don't get called back. So I went back to school, in Vancouver, stayed down there with the ex-mother-in-law and got my TQ. And was really lucky. Our instructor for carpentry in those days was an old timer, an old lefty, an old commie actually, Harry Bird. And our project was setting up a hip rafter, so there's got to be some crazy people out here. On a hip rafter, it's half the thickness, blah, 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 when you're measuring it out to get your right angles coming down onto your wall. Right? And so I laid it all out, and I needed my TQ to get in local 2300 of the Carpenters Union, who never had a hall, an office, nothing. Manpower used to do our dispatching, if you can imagine. Anyways, Harry, I smoked a cigar and walk up and say, son, you remember that story about the half-inch of the sick? Jeez. I gotta go for coffee, he said. So he gave me a break and let me go back, finished it all, and got in the local. So we spent quite a bit of time on the tools out at 7 Mile. That was not a bad job, cost plus for Commonwealth. And I was out there a couple of years, I guess. Give me a chance to get straightened around. Lots of you probably know about that, when you get a chance to get cleaned up and get out of debt and all that. It's a horrible thing for construction workers, because you're making big stuff and then you're making nothing. So it was living off, of course, on the job and stuff and carrying on, and there was an election for a business rep. So there was 3 of us running. There was a guy, Les Short, not a bad guy, but not much initiative. And then there was a right-winger, Bill Radisky, he was something else. And then there was me, just 2 years in the local, so I just was eligible to run. And I'd always been active even at the pulp mill with a lot of the Duke community, because I hated that racist shit. We used to be awful at the pulp. No Dukes out here, all that kind of bullshit, eh? And even in my day here is when they took the kids from the Duke and stuck them in the concentration camp up in New Denver, and that's what it was. Took the kids just like they're doing down in the States, stuck them behind chain link fence, and the parents used to go out there and cry, and the kids would be bawling. It was horrible. Horrible stuff. So I helped around that and WCB and that kind of stuff. So the Duke community, I had a lot of respect there. I didn't realize that. And I'll never forget, they voted here, and I think the vote was tied. And we had 2 locals at the time, Castlegar and Nelson. And then the next 2 nights later was the membership meeting in Nelson. So I went in there, and it was not a bad turnout. It was a voting, voting on the rep. And then I heard this noise at the door, and in comes George Kanakin, who was the bomber. I don't know if you've ever seen them. There's a documentary about the Freedomites, and George was the guy that made the bombs. Learned his trade at Agassiz, and they all lived up in the new settlement in Crestova, and lots of good carpenters. Really good carpenter. Anyway, in comes George with about 10 or 12 of his people with him from Crestova. Walks up to the front, signs for his ballot, all the rest of them signed for the ballot. Turns around, nodded to Pete, the president, then come back. They all come back and shook my hand and left. And I won the election. So that was a little lesson in politics. So Corky Evans got the same one when Ujjal ran against him, so which I wasn't unhappy to see Corky lose. He's turned out to be really a one-eyed jack and really horrible. He's on the credit union board with my partner, my wife, and she's been there for 20 years. She beat Russell Leamy, knocked him off, and then spent 20 years on the board. And of course, they want to merge all these credit unions in the area. And the government appointed him to what's Bruce? I said, I'm in a bit of a jam here. And Jan said, phone Bruce, Lawton. He's been the Carpenters, this bright guy. If it wasn't for Bruce and Dave Flynn, we wouldn't have beat the International. So Bruce said, you know, if I had to apologize to every person that I called an asshole, I'd be out of my law practice. Oh, I'm going to write this guy a letter. He wrote a classic letter. I was so proud of my affiliation with CMAW and with law. And Bruce phoned me at home at 9 when my partner was worrying and we were going to have to, because they threatened me, they were going to take me to Supreme Court and charge me with libel. So Bruce opened it up and said, first of all, learn the difference in law between libel and slander. You know, so you're on the wrong track right there. And then he gave them a whole bunch of precedents and said, you know, kind of fill your boots. So now I was telling Neil yesterday, because he knows this woman. The next time we see Lenny downtown here in Castlegar, hey asshole, life goes on, because that's what Bruce said. You know, life goes on. So anyway, it's been a hell of a ride. One more PPWC story, and if I see people yawning, I'll wrap it up. We, and it's the same battle we've always been in with those of us that believe in democracy and workers' rights and independent organization where there's accountability. The Fed never has. BC Federation Labour hasn't, neither has the CLC. You know, it just blows me away. Quick example, in 1967, Local 1 of the PPWC was organizing to raid steel at Comingo, and we had the votes. I remember being in Kimberley talking to the miners. This big miner comes up and he said, anybody that comes to a meeting in dress shoes and work socks, I'll support him. He said, because I must have not had clean dress socks or something, so I had work socks on. Anyways, we could have, and Ken Giorgetti signed a card to join CW, Canadian Workers Union. And it was that work by the PPWC that caused the Labour Board to start using certification votes, because before that there was no certification votes. They handed Castlegar Pulp over to Pulp Sulphite with 7 people on site, and to CEP in the machine room, because there was 2 people for CEP, and they were all paid off. These workers, they all were going to get foreman's jobs or blah 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 or whatever. So it wasn't until the PPW. I bet you not many of your members know that we actually went after steel. Too bad we didn't get, you know, one of the worst examples. So Ken Giorgetti ends up as president of the CLC. And if you want it, none of you need an example of how corrupt that can be. The guy that's there now is not bad, but they doesn't serve any purpose. Or the CEP. Jan was, and I really respect Jan's position. I mean, we were never going to merge with the CEP and CMAW, but we needed a big bat at the CLC. So Coles and the CEP swung that for us, so that they couldn't put us in purgatory, whatever the hell the CLC does. So my last meeting with Ken Giorgetti, Dave Flynn and I were standing out on Kingsway in Vancouver in front of our office. And Giorgetti said, well, I can meet you on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, but that's the only time I can meet. And I'm heading back to Ottawa. And a big sexist asshole too, just for women's edification, just awful. So he's saying, well, you know, and this and that, and I've known him for years, and this and that, and they said, and then he got pissed off, and he said, Embree, when I'm finished with you, you're going to be the loneliest fucker on the planet. That was Ken Giorgetti. So anytime I get a chance to talk to people, I have to tell that story, because I like Kenny to know that I've been probably the most comforted person that he would probably know compared to him. But that's how, yeah, he's kind of persona non grata, but they don't care. Same thing when we were with Jim Sinclair, who I knew for years, who went to Nicaragua in '82 before I did, and was part of starting the Tools for Peace. And which, by the way, the Carpenters, for some of you that don't know, the Carpenters Union sponsored a school in Nicaragua. So Sinclair went down for that, but he never went back. And most of the people, Mikhail will know this, he's been in Latin America. you either spend a lot of time in Latin America and want to go back forever, or you get your ass out of there and you never go back. I was the opposite. I could have lived there. But Sinclair, it never affected him. All that he saw down there. So we're in a fight with the International. Am I rambling?
No.
So we're in a fight with the International. This big, gray-haired asshole in an Armani suit, J. Douglas McCarran or some goddamn thing like that. General President. President is not good enough when you're in the so-called established labor movement, and it's not established. You got to be General President and General Secretary, Treasurer, and all that nonsense. So I find out we come from Port Alberni. They first things first. A little bit about the CMAW. We were in this fight, and we knew all they wanted was the strike fund. And we had $3 million in the strike fund, and I turned it over to Noster and Nedlick and the rest of the leadership because they got all that back again. I understand. I'm on a decent pension, and I even got a 4% raise, so I mean it's a pretty good organization. But all they wanted was the money. But when I found out that Sinclair from the Fed, he was the president of the Fed, was meeting privately with McCarran and Little Jimmy Dickens Smith. I used to call him Little Jimmy Dickens. He was the international pork chopper. And I spent time in Nicaragua with this guy. I figured he was a comrade, and he was, the established labor movement became more important than helping the carpenters get their rights and protect them. They shot me. No. I said, fuck it, we're out of here. And I got up and somebody shut the lights off on them. They're not used to that. And we left there and we went back out for another referendum. But this guy was a piece of work. Brother up for corruption, been charged with corruption. All of them, big bucks, those guys say. Really big bucks. I remember we were doing discovery on him. They said, Bruce, we won 2 or 3 lawsuits, and then we're in the Supreme Court again, and they sent a little weasel around from KPMG. I come out of my office one day, there's this guy about my size at the counter. I said, who the hell are you? Well, I've come for your books. And the level, our newspaper office had been broken into that morning, so I was pretty cranky anyway. I said, you what? Well, I'm the accountant of KPMG, and I've come on behalf of Doug McCarran and the International Brotherhood, and I want all your books. I said, you get the fuck out of here before I throw you down the stairs. I just said it, got away with it. Maybe he could have taken me, I don't know. So that was kind of the culmination. Then it was the court, and it was trying, not just you guys, you comrades, women and men, you've been through probably the same thing or in some capacity or others. But I remember we had McCarran in Discovery, and Dave Flynn, just a great guy, pile driver, passive aggressive, but oozed integrity. We all know some people that are like that. He just oozed integrity. So we're doing discovery, and we're just going in and we're going to discover McCarran. He had to come up from San Diego, and there he is in his suit. And I used to say when I got a chance to talk publicly about it, kind of demean him a little because I knew that he slept in the coffin. What? Oh, he didn't like that. I heard that, so I said that. McCarran sleeping in a coffin again. So he come up to me and he said, Embree, isn't it Leonard? I said, no, actually it's Lennox George Merton Embree. And I say that because that's great maritime stuff. You get all the names of your father and your grandfather, their favorite uncle, and the doctor that delivered you. Okay, brother, you know that. And I said, oh. And I said, and you're... You could have knocked his eyes off with a stick. Was he ever pissed off? So we had our lawyer work him over. We had a good lawyer. Bruce lined up Alan McDonald. And Jan used to say about Alan, a dangerous man, Len, a dangerous man. So it was quite a struggle. Gotta talk a little bit about Noster, because I have to admit I'm a bit prejudiced. He's like a son to me. My other son works for C-SPAN down there. Butch isn't here today, eh? So Aaron went down to the coast, and he's working on the waterfront, and they're running into problems there. Same thing. 10 years work now that we got a shipbuilding industry in the country again. Of all people to get out of Harbour and that bunch of fascists, and they want cuts. C-SPAN's come with a stack of cuts that deep. And they've got 7 years work on just one ship, on the supply ship. It's just bizarre, but it never changes. So, young Cole was working for us too, Josh. He was telling me about Noster. Now I get even. He said, you know Ken Noster? No. Well, he said, he's the international rep there at Edmonton. Oh, yeah. Says, hey, they're on the Governor General's tour or something. I said, what the fuck are you doing on the Governor General's tour? He was suspect. Well, then I learn a little bit more, and I find out that he wanted to organize the reps in Alberta. He was their poster boy. And he had a call from Doug McCarran down south, personally saying, you don't really want to fucking have them in the union. He took his fishing rod and came to BC, and we hired him, and it was one of the best decisions. So, knows how to fight. So that's kind of what you gotta have. So, anyways, that's kind of what's gone on. I've been influenced and fortunate to be influenced by some pretty progressive people. I'm really flattered. Was really flattered about the documentary and the picture. So, my daughter told me about it. Looked it up. Cried. Dad! So, yeah, she works in Vancouver. She's the ED for a social service agency, and they're the same thing. They're dealing with homeless people and abused people. And so she's got the right politics. I'm happy to say my partner is. So life has been pretty goddamn good to me, and I'm really appreciative. And I've got to say, if there's anybody here from the area that uses Heritage Credit Union, be opposed to that goddamn merger, because it's nothing but a sellout of workers' money. I'm convinced of that. I've got one little thing I want to. And I told Noster I'm going to have a hard time. I'm known for this being misty. That's a Kenny Lippett from Rupert Smith. Oh, I'm not having it because he retired the same meeting. No, after me, he was at a meeting. So he said, I'm not going to get misty like Len. But he was kind of misty for Kenny, which was surprising. So these are, if you can believe it, these are Len Embree, Baghead, Alberta, an agreement from 1917 with the Western Coal operators, and then there's one from 1935, and then there's another one, the Constitution, and the mine workers were only certified in the States, in Indianapolis, in 1950. So there was exciting things going on. And in those days, I think that the American unions did us a hell of a service. I know some of you that might be history buffs. IWW, International Workers of the World, Bill Haywood and Eugene Debs and all those people. I have another relative that was down when they hung Eugene Debs down south here, and they put him in jail for 10 or 12 years. So I guess I come by my opinions honestly, if I can get away with that. But these are my grandpa's, and my grandmother her name was Wood, Nettie Mae Wood, 4 kids. She was a governess for Sir Charles Tupper's grandchildren, so she was educated in in those days. Now, what she did ended up with an old miner, like my grandpa's beyond me, but he was no dummy. And she taught him enough that he was the youngest guy in the country at that time to get his first-class steam engineering ticket. So he got to come up out of the pit to be the tipple boss. And that was a big thing. But some of this stuff is just, it's in some ways we've come a long ways, in other ways we haven't. I was looking here at an agreement, just so you understand what goes on. Here we are, Carpenters, $3.85 a day for a 10-hour day. Carpenter's helper, $2.90 for a 10-hour day. Powerhouse engineers, is anybody here from the steam plant? $4.40 for a 12-hour day. A day, if you can imagine. And this is the one that really gets me. Car oilers boys, $1.65 for a 10-hour day. You know, and they crawled around. So that's the stuff that they did and formed a union and supported it, so that we could stand here caring for one another in a beautiful hall with rights to fight. Hopefully, I'm kind of not as pessimistic as I used to be. I see all kinds of signs out there that the worker class has just about had enough. It started a bit with the Occupy movement. This lunatic down south is scary, but I say to the people from Ontario, keep your chin up, which they will. They know that with that asshole. I said it again. Somebody better do it. But the CP settled with about 2 days before they went on strike. The CN settled. There's glimmers around. The problem is we've got established organizations like the building trades. I mean, the building trades, it's just so destructive. It's that old craft mentality, and then, just buy the way out of stuff. And the Fed is not much better. So you're a really important group and worker representatives for this time in history. And as Groucho said, maybe Carl, said, men define their own history. No, men make their own history. Circumstance defines it. So you find yourself in a situation, there's Mikhail, he probably even knows the difference between Groucho and Carl. He better, his mother kicked his ass. Wouldn't she? So I'm kind of optimistic, actually. It's just, how do we bridge that gap? It's like you all here, and some of you are in Castlegar. If you're going in that credit union, offer those working women support. They're getting worked over like you wouldn't believe, and they're good people. They're working class women making decent union wages, which they should. And they're getting harassed. They had 16 outstanding grievances, all that kind of stuff. All of this so that they can get the CEOs to take their wages from $135,000 to maybe $200,000 that day. So here's a little something that I was raised on. Maybe I won't choke up. It's Constitution and Bylaws from 1915. And it's evident that the progress of the human race has been made possible only by those who do the world's work. Without the creative labor of those who toiled in the mills, mines, factories, etc., present-day civilization would be impossible. Although the working class produces all the necessities and luxuries of life, more than enough to satisfy the wants of every member of society, yet we find that millions of the working people live in poverty and degradation. This state of affairs, which is contrary to all common sense and reason, is brought about by the fact that we have two conflicting classes in society. One class that owns the means of wealth production but produces nothing. And another class that produces everything, but owns nothing but their slave labor, which they have to sell to the owning class in order to live. We all know that's true. These conditions can be changed, and a sane system of production and distribution inaugurated by the working class collectively taking over and administrating the means of wealth production for the benefit of all useful members of society. To this end, we pledge ourselves to the political actions laid down by the Socialist Party of Canada. That was in the Mine Workers' Constitution in 1915. That's something. So that's where I was brought up. Extremely proud of that. Extremely appreciative for having the opportunity. Pretty happy to be here and address all you, and I wish you all the best in solidarity. And anything I can do